Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, join us as we gather together to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And guys, if you're talking about the delicious chocolate frosting on top of the joy cake that is life, you're talking about one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
The joy cake that is life, John. That has to be a new one. You know, I'm joyful today as well because it's Super Tuesday, and after this show, I'm going to vote. I could have voted a little earlier here in California, but I like voting day. I like, despite any outbreak of diseases, I like going to my polling place. I like chatting with the volunteers. I like getting my I voted sticker. So I'm very excited about exercising my civic duty this morning.
Something that enough people do not do. Something that enough people do not do, and may you be a beacon and an example to all, Robert Meyer Burnett, sir.
I try.
Well, listen, we do have a whole bunch of things that we're going to talk about here today, including a lot of live questions. I'm going to let you guys know how this show runs. We're going to do, first of all, we're going to do a bunch of main topics, and then after the main topics, we're going to go into the second half of the show and take your live questions. So that's how we do things around here, and we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a little form. Fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question picked as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by The Legend. And The Legend writes, I just read that Jeff Wadlow revealed details on his X-Force trilogy, and apparently it was going to focus on less privileged mutants that didn't have the benefits of a Professor X to lead them. Instead, Cable would have found them and came across as a more darker mentor, and by the third film, the X-Force would have become a dark hit squad black ops team, much like they did in the comics to a degree. This makes me wish X-Men didn't get bought by Disney because this sounds amazing. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Legend. And yes, yeah, there are some more details coming out now that, everything is firmly over at Disney now. A lot of the things have been scrapped. A lot of things have been brushed away. The Hugh Jackman Wolverine is gone and all that kind of stuff. They are but a distant and sometimes fond memory. But one of the projects that, of course, was in motion before this whole deal went through was the stuff on X-Force. And Jeff Wadlow was, of course, going to be behind that, director of Kick-Ass 2, which, by the way, he did a very nice job on Kick-Ass, despite the fact that he had to do it without Big Daddy, which is a really big, that you're starting from behind when you have to make another Kick-Ass movie, but you don't get to use Big Daddy. Anyway, I thought I did a really nice job on that film. So he came out recently and started talking about what his plans are going to be for this X-Force film. This is what he had to say. He said, I plotted out this 3-movie arc that took X-Force from what it was in the 90s with Rob Liefeld and with a band of kids fighting for what they believe in. And then, by the third film, the group would have grown and changed and lost and picked up some new members and basically turned into Rick Remender's, I've always mispronounced Rick's last name, Remender's version of the X-Force in the early 2000s. That was a much darker hit squad and black ops team who had lost their way over the course of 3 films. This, to me, sounds fantastic. This sounds fantastic. Now, you do have to keep in mind, one of the things that I talk about often here on this show is that concept doesn't make a movie. I used to think that was the case. I used to think the originating concept is what makes your movie. It doesn't. We've seen some fabulous original concepts that turn out to be bad movies. We see some really lame concepts turn out to be fabulous movies. It's all in the execution. So yes, this would have come down to execution, but I got to say, just on the basis of concept, this sounds really cool. And here's the other thing. This sounds like a movie that Disney would not make. And that was always to me, look, I'm a Disney fan. Everybody knows I'm a Disney fan. But from day one, Rob, that they announced that there was going to be this Fox merger with Disney, I was not a fan of the idea when it came to the comic book movies because I knew that under Disney, the variety of comic book movies that we would get from now on without Fox being there to shepherd an X-Men universe, was going to become more limited. Rob, I've always said, without Fox, we never would have gotten, X-Men Days of Future Past.
Right.
Without Fox, we absolutely never would have got Logan. We never would have got Logan. That's just, take that off the map right now. It never would have happened if Fox didn't have the X-Men properties. If Fox didn't have the X-Men properties, we never would have gotten Deadpool. There is no way in hell Disney ever would have given us Deadpool. And one of the reasons now that we're seeing Warner Brothers and even Disney and some others taking chances with some edgier comic book materials is because Fox went into the waters first. They went out there with Logan. They went out there with Deadpool. Listen, maybe New Mutants is going to be great. Maybe it's going to be terrible. But it is, again, going to be a very different kind of comic book movie than we've ever gotten because they were in the business of taking those sorts of risks that the other comic book guys, who were also making great films, Marvel obviously making fabulous films, DC made some really good ones, but they were going into territory that other people were not willing to go. And because they did, the entire landscape of the comic book genre now has opened up with new possibilities because Fox proved you could do it with their things. This, Rob, this X-Force stuff sounds to me like another lost opportunity. Again, this movie might have turned out to be terrible for all we know, but it would have, again, sounded like a comic book property that was going on the big screen was going to try to go in some new and different and exciting directions. Maybe it would have been terrible. Maybe it would have been great. So it's just another reason why I lament a little bit. I still lament a little bit, Rob, about the fact that Disney got all those characters back. And again, I trust Kevin Feige. I know he's going to do some great stuff with it. Don't get me wrong. But, I just kind of, when I think back on it, man, it makes me wish kind of a little bit that maybe it was still happening. I don't know, Rob, you hear about this whole thing. And I know you were, even before the merger, you were talking about the possibilities of X-Force. What do you think about what we're hearing out of Jeff Wadlow right now?
Well, as we both know, and I think our viewers obviously know, is that Disney is a certain kind of company. They make a certain kind of film, and they've established bigger than anyone what comic book movies can do when they're properly handled and properly shepherded into existence. And, they're going to have to figure out at some point how they're going to expand their brand. I mean, we've now seen the 20th Century Studios logo. It's now in front of movies. They're going to have to, they can't just continue to make the same kind of content forever. They're going to have to branch out. They're going to have to put things on Hulu. And I don't think they quite have a handle on that yet. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing just fine. There's no reason for them to have to change. But I do think that the superhero film, because of what's happened before, because of the fact that we have had Logan, we have had Deadpool, that there's going to be an expectation among the audience that where's more of that? You can't keep, in a way, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to have to evolve, and maybe that's what they're going to try and do with their streaming shows. They've got to become something else. Otherwise, they're going to be repetitive. Everything's going to start to seem the same after a while. And like you astutely pointed out, Fox really pushed. They started out making X-Men, a superhero movie that began at Auschwitz. And, unbelievable. And they were able to push using the X-Men universe as far as they probably could. Logan and Deadpool being the biggest examples of that. And we need to see that continue. Audiences are going to eventually demand it. And I don't know if we're going to be getting the X-Files, the X-Force as detailed here, which I would have liked to have seen. I really would have liked to have seen an X-Force trilogy and watch a team develop. And, trilogies seem to be the sort of, there's something neat about getting 3 movies in a franchise. I've always sort of liked that. 4th movies are fine if they're really good, but I like the 3-movie thing and having a plan where they're evolving, like the Lord of the Rings, which I think should still be the template for all trilogies moving forward. It'd be nice to have seen that, and I'm kind of sad reading these plans that we probably will never see them reach fruition, and it's too bad.
And I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying that, oh, one Marvel movie is just like the next. No, I think Marvel's done a very good job.
No, don't me too.
Of trying to diversify their films. One film's a political thriller, one's more of a comedy, one's a heist film. I mean, they've done a very good job, but it is all within a certain set of limits that they've exercised this creativity. And we saw Fox just kind of burst through those and try some other really risky things. And now, of course, some of the Fox films turned out to be terrible, but some of them were some of the greatest films, comic book films of all time.
And I have to say that within the confines of what Disney found acceptable, they still did a lot of things that I was pretty impressed by, like Black Widow's sacrifice on Vormir. You know, that was edgy stuff, and for a family audience, you know, that pushed the boundaries. And
all right, guys.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, I think that they've done a wonderful job. Don't get me wrong. But they've pushed it about as far as they can go.
All right, guys, the question here is, now that you're hearing about what kind of their plans were for X-Force, are you kind of lamenting a little bit? Or are you like a lot of people that are like, nope, I'm just happy that everything that is Marvel, almost everything that is Marvel labeled, is back under Marvel? Or maybe you're kind of like us. You thought, no, there was some advantage to doing it another way. How do you feel about it right now? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that out of the way, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Matthew Jacobsmeyer, who writes, "Here we go again. Now the novelization of The Last Skywalker says that the kiss between Kylo and Rey wasn't romantic. It was a kiss of gratitude, acknowledgement of their connection, celebrating that they had found each other at last." All right. Thanks a lot for saying that in, Matthew. And for those of you who don't know what Matthew is talking about, yesterday we talked at length about the fact that, again, you know, Star Wars showed its massive inconsistency at this point. They kind of portrayed the Emperor in the movie as being one thing. Then in the visual dictionary, the official visual dictionary of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, they brought up a whole bunch of weird concepts that was never at all remotely inferred in the movie. And then the novelization came out, and the novelization says that Palpatine in this movie was actually a clone. And I went off on that, and I know a bunch of you guys were upset by that too. So now there's another example that's just come out, which seems to contradict the movie again. Here's the passage in particular from The Rise of Skywalker, and why I am actually surprisingly not bothered by it. Here it is. This is the passage in particular. Now, we all, of course, know the scene, the absolutely, utterly preposterous, ridiculous, nonsensical, idiotic scene in The Rise of Skywalker when Rey wakes up and her and Kylo start making out. Okay, it was just so dumb. Anyway, now, as the headlines are saying, apparently that was just a kiss of gratitude. Here's what was written in the novelization. His heart, talking about Kylo, his heart was full as Rey reached for his face, let her fingers linger. I feel like I should be in a smoking jacket reading this, Rob. I don't know why. I'd be like, his heart was full as Rey reached for his face and let her fingers linger against his cheek. And then, wonder of wonders, she leaned forward and kissed him. A kiss of gratitude, acknowledgement of their connection, celebration that they had found each other at last. But then she drew back, concern on her face. She could feel him grow cold. Ben smiled at her. He had given Rey back to the galaxy. It wouldn't atone for the darkness he had wrought, but it is what he could do. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. So, given that little passage there, a bunch of people understandably started writing to me, Rob, saying, now they're saying that kiss was just a kiss of gratitude. Now, look, if you saw the movie, and the movie made over $1 billion, so a hell of a lot of you did. If you saw the movie, no, it effing wasn't a kiss of gratitude. That was clearly in the movie a very passionate moment. It was a very passionate kiss. It was not a kiss of gratitude. I've given kisses of gratitude to people. It don't look like that. Okay. It was what it was. You can say whatever you want to say in the novels. That was not a kiss of gratitude. But, Rob, the reason I'm not bothered by this is actually because of this. I don't believe that. I look at the passage. Look, I saw all the headlines, right? I saw all the headlines. The book just says it was a kiss of gratitude. I'm like, that's stupid. And then I went and read the passage, and I'll tell you what. The way I read the passage, Rob, I don't feel like the passage at all suggests that all this was a kiss of gratitude. Let's look at this again. It lists gratitude as one of several things. She leaned him and kissed him, a kiss of gratitude, acknowledgement of their connection, a celebration that they had found each other at last. See, I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a forgiving mood today, but I read that and I personally don't see it saying it wasn't a kiss of passion. I just see them listing a whole bunch of things that it was, but I don't see it saying it was exclusively a quick peck on the cheek of gratitude. Hey, thanks, buddy. I know. A gratitude, one thing, one expression. Acknowledgement of their connection, another connection. And a celebration that they had found each other at last. See, to me, Rob, I almost wish that this was saying it was just a kiss of gratitude, but it's not. It really is. I think this is completely consistent with what we saw in the movie. The movie clearly made it obvious it was a kiss of passion. And I don't see anything in this passage personally that contradicts that. It just lists a bunch of things that was all also in that kiss. And so I don't personally see it as a contradiction. Although I hated the scene in the movie. I almost wish it was contradicted. But again, I don't think, and you know me, I'm ready to go off on yet more contradictions in the novelization of the movie. But I got to be honest, I looked at it and I see it being completely consistent with the movie. I don't know, Rob, you had a chance to take a look at this passage. What did you think about it?
Well, I
do you
guess,
want my smoker's jacket?
Look, I read this and the way I didn't see it as, dude, they're on Exegol. They're confronting Palpatine. I mean, I just don't think that, hot-blooded Twilight-esque passion between Force users was really in the offing here. I'd like to think that it was, there was a connection, and it was more like, we're gonna die, and whatever happens, we're going out together. And I'm acknowledging that in this dark, horrible, empty universe, we have some kind of a connection, whatever that means. And I think there was a lot going on in that kiss. But the way it was described, it almost was in the way it's described in this book, it's like, oh, what could have been between us, my love? I don't think it was that way at all. It's just the way it was described. I'm like, yeah, the situation is a little dire here. We're not exactly in a position where the sun is setting and the cool breeze is blowing and we shared a moment.
Remember, they had already won. They had won by that point, right?
Did
so
they?
Like at that point, yeah. I mean, like the emperor was dead. The fleet was gone. She had died. She had apparently died in killing the emperor. So I think, then she woke up and was like, oh, we won and I'm alive and you're here and let me stick my tongue in your mouth. I don't know. It just,
yeah, but still, I mean, it still was the culmination of fighting the ultimate evil and you murdered your father. And like, it's not exactly, we didn't just finish having a couple of pina coladas at the beachfront bar here. I mean, there was some dire straits. Leia's dead. Your mom's gone. You never got to say goodbye to her properly, except via the Force. You murdered your father. Luke's dead. I mean, it's the culmination of 9 movies. I just don't think anyone was real hot and bothered.
Yeah.
So
I agree. All right, guys. The question is this. What do you think about this particular outing from the novelization as well? Do you, like a lot of other people, see this as saying that, nope, they're saying that the movie thing was just not really what it looked like? Or are you kind of like me saying, I don't know, I read it and I don't see it being a contradiction? I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Dylan K, who writes, hey, John, Just notice that two movies I'm really looking forward to are both opening this weekend, with Ben Affleck's The Way Back, me too, buddy, and Pixar's Onward, which is great, by the way. I don't have tons of money or time to see both. Which one do you think I should see, and which one do you think will win the box office this weekend? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, there are two of the more highly anticipated movies to me are opening this weekend. There are a few others as well, but these were the two that really had my attention. One, of course, is Pixar's new film, Onward. Now, I have already seen Onward. I put up my quick out of the theater review and my regular review. Those are up on the channel right now. You can see them there. Spoiler alert, I really liked them. I really, really liked Onward. It was really quite nice. I haven't seen The Way Back yet, but this is a movie that's had me fascinated for a long time. First of all, when they announced that Ben Affleck was doing this movie, it felt kind of weird. Like, it feels a little too close to home, him playing this recovering alcoholic and blah, blah, blah. But then I started to really feel like, no, actually, I think this is really cathartic, not just for him, but maybe for us as an audience as well. So there was definitely that. And I've been getting, and I think the trailers have looked fantastic. I'm very, very excited to see this movie. I don't know if it's good or bad. I just know I'm very excited to see the movie. As far as which one, if you could only pick one to go see, and again, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage in the fact that I've seen one and I haven't seen the other. My recommendation would be, I know Onward is good. I know Onward is entertaining and will give you a good time. So I'm going to say Onward, but you just keep that asterisk in mind that I haven't seen The Way Back yet, and I just know that this one is good. As far as what's going to win the box office this weekend, well, that is an unfortunate, obvious answer. Onward is going to win the box office. Now, Onward is not being projected. They didn't have the best marketing campaign for this movie, Rob, but it's being projected to have one of the lower openings for a Pixar film. I think they're kind of right now forecasting around $45 to $50 million opening, which is great for a lot of movies. But, I mean, it's going to be on the lower end for a Pixar scale. Again, this has been a difficult film for them to market. And even after seeing the movie, I'm not 100% sure what the best way is to market this film. I'm not even sure what the best way would have been, but it hasn't captured the people's imaginations like a lot of other Pixar things have, other than us telling you it's a really good movie and you should probably check it out. But, Rob, then you go to The Way Back, a movie that to me looks fascinating, looks fantastic. Ben Affleck, in a very true to home, if you're looking for verisimilitude, this is kind of it.
Yes, it is.
It looks powerful and strong, and it's original and all this kind of stuff. It's being projected to make $10 million opening weekend. $10 million. Showing us once again that us film fans are liars. We lie, Rob. We lie to ourselves all the time. And one of the biggest lies that we always tell ourselves, and I'm including me in this, I'm including you in this, you're all part of it. Film fans lie when film fans constantly say, man, I sure wish there was some more original film out there. Oh, there is original film out there. You just don't go see it. And The Way Back, one of the best examples of that I always use as a poster child for that was Nice Guys, with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. That's always been one of the poster children. Super entertaining, big stars, great concept, very original, wonderful film, and none of you went to go see it. And yet, when the next big blockbuster comes out, people think they sound cool by going, oh, I wish there was more original film in Hollywood, to which I usually scream bloody murder. There's more original film being made in Hollywood today than any other time in history, and y'all just don't go see it. And it looks like The Way Back is going to be the next one of those, because this movie looks great. And I haven't seen it. It might be terrible. I haven't seen it. I understand that. But it looks great. It looks like it's powerful. It's got like some real human drama in it, and ain't nobody going to go see it this weekend, which I think is really unfortunate. Anyway, Rob, I know you didn't get a chance to go to that advanced preview of Onward yet, so you haven't seen Onward or The Way Back yet, so you're in a little bit of a better position here. So if somebody comes to you and is asking you, I can only got time to go see one, which one are you recommending they go see? Which one are you planning to see first? And how do you think the box office is going to shake out this weekend?
Okay, John, I'm gonna make a startling admission on this show right now.
You've never seen the movie.
No. I like animation. I like anime. I have a large collection of it. But I will always choose a live action film over an animated film, even if it's Pixar, if it's Miyazaki. Wow. I always will. I mean, if it's comparable, in terms of, only because at the end of the day, from a cinematic standpoint, from my perspective, I really enjoy the craft. The craft of animation is different for me than the craft of live action movie making. And I find that I get more out of live action films, and I've always felt that way. Just like, I've always felt that I don't get as much out of sitcoms as I get out of, say, a show like The West Wing. Now, sitcoms, right, I enjoy them, but from a cinematic standpoint, I don't find them as rich. And that's not to say, look, I own movies like Grave of the Fireflies and Watership Down and The Plague Dogs and Fantasia and Snow White. I own all of those movies. But I got to go with the way back on this, because especially to me, Ben Affleck's performance alone is something that I find that, especially in terms of the subject matter, will probably be fascinating to watch, for me at least. And it's something that I find myself far more interested in than a movie I already know is going to be good. I already know the people at Pixar always deliver. But I think for me, I would get more out of seeing a movie like The Way Back, or The Way Back, whatever it's called now.
I think, it's just The Way Back. I think that's an interesting observation. All right, guys, the question for you is, there's more than just these two, but putting these two in front of you right now, you can go see Onward, or you can go see The Way Back. Which one are you more leaning towards going to see? How big of a difference? I mean, clearly Onward's going to be the bigger movie at the box office, but how much of a gap do you think there's going to be there? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to the fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Leo, who writes, "The Call of the Wild is set to lose over $50 million for Fox/Disney, considering its $125 million production budget. Is it safe to say that this is one of the biggest busts of the year so far?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And listen, unless I'm forgetting something obvious, it's not one of the biggest busts of the year so far. If this thing loses $50 million, that is absolutely the biggest bust of the year so far. There are going to be other movies that lose money, but this, and I'll tell you what, I am not at all convinced that this movie is only going to lose $50 million. I'm not at all convinced of that. A lot of the headlines are saying they're projecting it's going to lose $50 million. I think that's optimistic. I think that's very optimistic. I actually think it's going to lose more than that. Now, again, I'm not talking about the quality of the movie. I'm not talking about anything of that. But it just kind of raises the question again, Rob, that I just don't get. I just don't get how any studio executive thought that a movie like this was going to be justifiable to spend 110, 115, reports up to $125 million on. This was a movie that was set up to fail from day one. Now, if Invisible Man was making the money that Call of the Wild, and by the way, Call of the Wild's probably going to, at the end of the day, it might even make more money than Invisible Woman. Guess what? They made the Invisible Man for $7 million. Not 125. They made it for $7 million. They didn't look how stupid that CGI dog looks. Look how dumb that dog looks. Anyway, I digress. The point here is that it just raises up again the questions of what logic was there in greenlighting a movie? How could they have possibly thought that a movie like this, which could have been, look, you make a movie like this for $30 million, could be a nice little family film. You could have made a nice little profit. Could have been pretty good. You spend over $100 million more on that. You spend an exorbitant amount on a marketing budget. You cannot possibly tell me that you believe this movie was going to make $450 million. There's just no way this movie is ever going to make $450 million. So I see this. I'm not surprised. If anything, Rob, if there's any doubts that I have, the doubts are actually around the fact that I doubt it's only going to lose $50 million. I'm thinking it's probably going to lose a bit more. But anyway, Rob, you see this. Are you shocked? Are you surprised? Are you not at all? Will it be a higher loss? Will it be a lower? How are you seeing it right now?
Well, I mean, this is the year Doolittle came out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much money
that's
movie
one I got to
lost.
keep in mind is Doolittle. You're right. That's a good example.
You know, I look, I think this movie's greatest sin, and the people I've talked to, I haven't talked to one person who didn't like this movie and that has seen it. But I think the biggest mistake they made was putting a CGI dog in it. You know, I think that really curtailed the success of this film. And I really believe that, I mean, from I guess from a storytelling perspective, from a studio perspective, I don't know why they thought spending $125 million on this movie was a good idea. I mean, they're out in the wilderness. They're out in locations. It's not like you had a cast of thousands fighting off Zulu warriors or something like Zulu, one of my favorite British movies. You know, it shouldn't have cost this much money, and I think a lot of the cost went to that damn dog. And you can't tell me that having a real dog would have been cheaper. I know it should have been a combination of the two or whatever, but still, I don't know, John. It's certainly they took a bath on it. I don't know who greenlit it in this day and age, but it bums me out.
And to highlight the unfortunate situation is something you point out. I have not heard from many people that say that they love this movie, but most people I've talked to have at least liked it.
Yep.
So, I mean, and that just really makes this situation even all the more unfortunate that people seem to be enjoying this film. It's a nice little film from all accounts. How they ever thought, though, to put the price tag where it is. So, to me, guys, no surprise that they're talking about the amount of loss it's going to have. What do you guys think? Did you guys have a chance to see it? What did you think of it? Are you surprised it's going to lose that much? Do you think that maybe those are overly negative numbers? Do you think maybe it could still break even? Do you think it's going to be optimistic and that it's actually going to lose a lot more? How do you guys see it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way now, we're going to move on to your live questions. A bunch of you guys have already been sending them in. By the way, there are two ways to send in live questions. The first way and the best way to do it is to use that tip link you see in the top line of the description of this video. The link is simply streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You can go and use that anytime, by the way. You can even send in questions in between shows, so you can be one of the first questions asked the next day. So that's the best way to use it. Or if you don't want to use that way, you can also just use the super chat feature right here on YouTube. Now, before we get to those live questions, guys, one of the things that Rob and I do every day in between the main topics and, of course, the live questions is we take just a little bit of a break, give ourselves a chance to stretch the legs, refill the drinks, rest the vocal cords, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom. So we're going to do that right now. We're just going to take a couple of minute break. So hang in there with us, guys. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Everybody, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. Now, let's jump right into your live questions, and we're going to get things started off here today with an anonymous viewer who writes in, I'm calling it now. If Fast 10 is truly the last standalone Fast and Furious movie, then I bet all characters will return for it, even Brian, but it will be Paul Walker's brothers instead of him, and James Wan will produce while Justin Lin directs. It's possible. It's possible, but the one thing against that, Anonymous, is I don't believe anybody believes that 10 would be the last. If it makes money. Look, if Fast 9 comes out and it makes $300 million at the box office, and then maybe the future's in doubt. But look, Fast 9 minimum is going to make probably $700 million. I'm saying minimum. It's going to be like $700 million worldwide. Maybe even be $1 billion film. And then 10 will probably make bank, and nobody's going to want to shut it down. So that's the biggest hitch to that. And by the way, Rob, I think we may see, from rumors I've heard, we may actually see Brian's character return because there were reports that Paul Walker's brothers were on set. So we might see him anyway. But I don't know. Do you think if they do 10 that it's going to be it's definitely going to be the last one? They're going to bring all hands back, or do you think they're just going to treat it as another episode?
No, I mean, regardless, the 10th, that there's, 11 if you include Hobbs and Shaw, but the fact that there's 10 Fast and Furious movies, that's got to be some kind of milestone in all of human history, John. I don't know what it means, but wow, the fact that mankind reached a level of technological proficiency and artistic progression to deliver us a 10th Fast and the Furious movie is certainly cause for celebration. If there is a creator responsible for the universe and all things in it, he must be smiling down from his heaven, or her, or it from heaven, saying, you know what? All of this was because I wanted to see a 10th Fast and the Furious film. So I don't think we should ever say that a 10th Fast and Furious movie should never be considered something we take lightly, John. It is truly the pinnacle of human evolution and achievement, and it should be celebrated, and all hands should come back. As a matter of fact, I think everybody even remotely connected to anything to do with the Fast and the Furious franchise, the crew, everybody that's watched a Fast and the Furious movie over the years, the whole planet Earth should pitch in for the greatness that whatever FX is going to be, man. I don't know what that's going to be, but man, do I want to see it.
All right, let's move on here. The next one also comes from an anonymous viewer who writes, John, what are your thoughts on if people going to the movies and box office is affected by all that's happening with politics and society? It seems like it would have a negative effect, but I go to the movies a lot and everyone comes together then divided. I'm going to tell you this right now, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I don't mind if this offends some people, although it's not my intention. I think refusing to go to a movie because somebody is in it that doesn't share your particular political viewpoint is one of the most idiotic, weak-minded, pathetic things I've ever heard. Seriously. I just don't understand that point of view. Like, I don't get, like, okay, you take somebody like I don't know who's an actor, Brad Pitt, right? Who is clearly maybe a little bit more leaning to the left in his politics. Just because he's got a certain political slant, not going to see one of his movies because it doesn't align with your politics, God, you must be weak-minded. Clint Eastwood, a guy who's traditionally been more right-leaning in his politics. You know what? I'm not going to go to see a Clint Eastwood movie just because his political philosophies don't completely align with mine. It's that would be one of the most stupid political idiotic things ever. I think the vast majority of people, regardless of their political persuasions, be they leaning left, be they leaning right, whatever, I think the vast majority of people are way more intelligent than that. Whatever your political persuasion, I think they're far more intelligent than that. And look, yeah, there are some situations where there are individuals that I don't want to support their films. Like, I don't know, 13-year-old, child rapist. I don't want to go see him. I don't want to go see his films. Dude who beats up a woman so badly it hospitalizes her. Okay, I don't want to see that, but it has nothing to do with like particular political persuasions or philosophies. I just don't get it. I think it's dumb, but I think those people represent, on both sides, I think those people represent the vast minority, because I just think people are just generally more intelligent than that. And I believe that. So that's my thoughts. Okay, anyway. Ulysses Smith writes, I can't stand how much people are annoyed at the confusing sequels of Fast and Furious, yet there are plenty of other series with even more sequels, like 007 and Star Trek, among others. Yes, it's gone too far, but you can say that about other film sequels. I disagree with Ulysses on this point. I don't think that's an apples-to-apples comparison. Because the people who will come out and complain about, more Fast and Furious movies, it's not just because there are more. It's because, and I don't agree with them, but it's because of the nature of those films being more. The nature of Fast and Furious films are vastly different from the nature of 007 films. The nature of Fast and the Furious films are massively different from the nature of, say, a Mission Impossible series. They're completely different in nature. And I think when you hear a lot of people complaining about it, it's just that I think it's because, and again, I don't agree with them, but their proposition would be that these movies have just gotten completely ridiculous. And there's some truth to that. But there are some of us that are eating up that ridiculousness. That's all. So I don't think that's an apples-to-apples comparison. They're not just complaining because there's another film in the franchise. They're complaining because of the way they see the franchise, and do we need another one of those? So I think that's a different thing. Rob, how would you address that?
Well, how would I address all that? I don't know, John. Sometimes you just have to think to yourself, what's important in life? and I just, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that.
All right, let's move on then. The next question we've got coming in here comes to us. Where do we go here? There we are. James L.H. writes, one of two. Hi, John. I know you like viewer lists. I do. And I was feeling patriotic. Plus, with Bond upcoming, I thought I would put together some of my favorite British films, but I have not included any Bond only because there's that many in a list unto itself. So, in no particular order, Don't Look Now, Clockwork Orange, the aforementioned Zulu. Rob, that was brought up again.
How crazy is that? I didn't know.
Because I can't remember the last time anybody's brought up Zulu. Was Michael Caine was in Zulu, was he not?
Yes, he was. Zulu is. I have it on Blu-ray, by the way.
Oh, of course you do. Trainspotting, Lawrence of Arabia, Chariots of Fire, Bridge on the River Kwai, King's Speech, The Third Man, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which not enough people saw, Get Carter, With Nail and I, Gandhi, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Days Later. Dude, when you put together, this is one of the things I like about these sorts of lists.
That's an outstanding list of films.
This is what I like about lists like these when viewers send them in. It's just that it really makes you stop and realize, wow, there's so much great cinema in that category, whatever that category is. But that's a good one. Obviously, some of my all-time favorite films on that list, Bridge on the River Kwai.
Was that British? Was that British movies that were made in England?
I guess so. Because counts because I think Bridge on the River Kwai might have been produced by an American studio, wasn't it?
It was, but I maybe because Alec Guinness was in it.
Alec Guinness, yeah. So
great Brits. But I have to say, there's a movie on that list, With Nail and I, that is one of my very favorite movies of all time. It's a comedy that Americans don't really dig. I've tried to show it to a lot of Americans. They don't think it's funny. People look at me, but Richard E. Grant and Paul McGann are in it. And man, it's basically about these two just degenerate drunkards that go into the country for a weekend. It's just the best.
And then you got a film like Chariots of Fire on there, which, of course, for me, it was, of course, like the first tune I ever learned to play on piano. When I was trying to teach myself to learn how to piano, bum, 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 bum. I mean, that's like one of the very first things you learn how to play. But it is like, actually, what's the line? It's a
great movie. It won Best Picture. Chariots of Fire won Best Picture.
No, yeah, it won several Oscars. And there's this incredible line. I'm sure I'm misquoting it, but it goes something like this. It's just a moving line to me. He goes, God made me to run, and when I run, I feel his pleasure. There's just this gorgeous line and actually it's a movie filled with gorgeousness, and it is truly one of the greats. Okay, let's move on here. Next one, Hitchcock is the GOAT writes, there will be many stressful days ahead for Colin Trevorrow as he films Jurassic World Dominion. But when he's at his wit's end, he can simply retreat into solitude at the end of his day and read the latest update about the rise of Skywalker and have a guaranteed laugh. I cannot help but wonder, Rob, if at some point Colin Trevorrow just sits back and is like, whew, I dodged a bullet. Even if it was unintentionally, I dodged a bullet. Man, I'm glad I wasn't involved. I don't know. How do you think Colin Trevorrow is feeling about the whole situation right now?
Well, considering he's in the middle of directing Jurassic Park Dominion, and his last Jurassic Park made $1.5 billion or something, I think he's probably pretty stoked, because imagine, any filmmaker getting to direct a Star Wars movie would be like a dream come true. And having what happened to him, which was very public, and obviously the fan community and Hollywood at large had something to say about it. I think this is probably, and then, I liked his Duel of the Fates script quite a bit. I think this is probably very life-affirming for him, in that he's in the middle of directing a franchise that is beloved. I'm sure it's going to stick the landing. I mean, who doesn't want to see vampires? Who doesn't want to see dinosaurs running rampant all over the earth? Because we all do, John. We all want to see. We want to see dinosaurs in the cities eating people. And if I get that, I mean, I'm like, I'm in. There's not going to be people going, well, I just don't think it's canonical, and this ruined my childhood. No, dinosaurs eating people is what your childhood was all about. and we're going to be getting it even as an adult. And I cannot wait. The more people that die screaming in the streets, running away from raptors and Tyrannosaurus Rexes, I will be a happy camper. That's about all I want in my life, John.
All right. Next up comes to us from Basil, who writes, a little faulty towers there, writes, film trivia. The sound of velociraptors in Jurassic Park is made from tortoises having sex. So, without knowing it, we've been hearing tortoise porn. I have never heard that. I've never heard that. Rob, have you heard that before?
No, but now it makes me even like those scenes more.
And I'm going to have to go, like, really? Let's learn something new every day. If that's true, learn something new every day on this show. All right, Basil
Slow
also
and steady
writes,
wins the race.
Slow and steady. Oh, God. That brings a whole new connotation to that. Basil also writes, I recently managed to watch screenings of Eastwood's Unforgiven and Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. First time seeing them in a theater, I had several filmgasms. And dude, that's the way. Rob, I heard a rumor that you like A Clockwork Orange.
Dude, every day right behind me,
Yep.
you see Alex. But I have to tell you, Unforgiven is one of the movies that when I saw that the very first time, I saw it at the Chinese theater, and I wasn't big on Westerns. I was blown away by that movie. There's a scene in it where Clint Eastwood's he hasn't had drink, or he hasn't done wickedness or had drinks for like 10 years, and he has a bottle of whiskey in his hand, and he's trying to contemplate what has happened to his best friend Ned. Ned's in front of Greeley's. They put his dead body in front of the store, and he just kind of absentmindedly takes a swig of booze for the first time in 10 years. And when I was sitting in the theater, I was just getting chills, like the gates of hell have opened. And that film, it won Best Picture. I mean, it's so mythic. And everything about it is a deconstruction of the Western genre, yet a celebration of the Western genre at the same time. My God, I love that movie. It's so good.
There are a lot of people who make an argument that it may be the greatest Western of all time. And that feels sacrilegious to say outside of the Western era, but it could be. I mean, it is just that good. It
is really, really good, but you need all the other Western movies that came before it to make it as good as it is.
Right. And you look at the cast of the film. We're talking about Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman.
Richard Harris.
Yep. Dumbledore.
So Dumbledore, who comes, he's got that great speech about how no one will assassinate a king or a queen, but people kill presidents all the time. I mean, it's so good.
All right. Anyway, we need to move on here. Next one up comes to us from Morse Codes, who writes, about KBAW, the last few years I've heard the term bad actor used to describe someone or some group that do things with ill intentions or worse. Oh, that's okay. That's interesting. We Got This Covered was in my head when I wrote my post. Also, I caved on the meme you shared. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, look, I often will say to people, look, the website We Got This Covered, it could very well be a very, very good website, like for many different things. I'm just saying. But one thing it is not good for is you should never share a story that's We Got This Covered breaking a scoop. Because there was actually a study done on it that showed that over 98% of their scoops completely turn out to be false. So somebody shared this meme with me, so I re-interned Rob. I shared it on my social media. This meme that somebody gave me of Captain America saying, so you shared a link from We Got This Covered. And I just basically wrote, so I put that up on my thing as well and just said, please guys, whenever you see somebody sharing a story or a link from We Got This Covered, please put this in their comment section. Please put this in this comment section. So Sarah, but again, I don't know if it's ill intent. I don't know that when a site like that puts up a story that's clearly BS, I don't know that they're trying to do harm. I just think they clearly understand that they're writing something that's not true and they're misleading people, but they don't care because they do get a lot of attention, a lot of clicks, even if it's completely misleading and there's actually no basis in fact.
Right.
But hey, it is what it is. But thanks for sharing that, Morse Codes. Okay. Tim Platt writes, Lucasfilm, the Emperor is in a clone body. Me. That wasn't explained in the movie or the visual dictionary. Lucasfilm. We are altering the story. Pray we don't alter it any further. I think you just nailed it, Tim. I think you just nailed it. And I don't... Again, this is them trying to play catch up. This is them trying to play catch up or cover bases and stuff like that. You know, Rob, somebody said to me the other day, well, you know, John, quite often the novelizations are written based on early drafts of a movie and stuff like that, and they're done long ago. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just a line of text. You could have easily taken that line of text out of the book without it interrupting anything. But whatever, it is what it is. Initial D's writes, hey, John and guest. Did you hear about the Brisbane woman, Joan Connor, who set a Guinness World Record after watching Bohemian Rhapsody 108 times in cinemas? She also watched her DVD 291 times so far. Interesting and funny article from the site NME. I did not hear about that, but Rob, was it Wonder Woman? Was it Wonder Woman that there was a guy, we did a story on our show a long time ago, but I think it was Wonder Woman that a guy went to go see it like 100 times in theaters and so, like lost his job over it, and just because he wanted to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. I mean, hey, I love a lot of movies. I would never go to a theater that many times to see it, not in theater, and then I'll own it at home and I'll stay at home, but I just can't justify that kind of man time but hey, if it was important to her, and look, she's in the Guinness Book of World Records and I'm not, so there's that. Rob, if there was one movie that you would contemplate going to see 108 times in theaters, if there was one that you would say, maybe that one I would. Do you have one that you might do that for?
Gosh. You know, one of my favorite movies is The Godfather. I never get tired of The Godfather. But The Godfather's also 3 hours long. 100 times in the theater. I saw The Empire Strikes Back 26 times in the theater. That was the movie I saw most in the theater. And I was 13. I had the time. But nowadays, I even had a job back then. but I just can't see myself seeing a movie now. I don't have enough time left on this planet, John. If I was younger, there's so many movies I haven't seen. I now have gotten to a point in my life where, as much as I love my comfort movies, every time I throw something on I've seen a lot, I feel guilty for watching it because I think there's movies out there that I haven't seen, and I should be watching those instead of a movie I've seen a lot of times yet again. That's kind of where I'm at in my life now.
All right, let's go on to the next one. And our next one up also comes from Initial D's, who writes, I really like this guy. Why am I freezing on his... Oh, this is poking fun at me. What is it? He's on the show. I can't believe I can't think of his name. He's really good, and he'll come to me later. Yeah, I have had times over the years where people would point out to me, because it happens at least... Well, maybe not. No, I don't think it's happened today, but okay, at least a number of times a week. At least a number of times a week, minimum. Sometimes every day. Well, we'll hit a point, Rob, in a show where I'm trying to think of an actor, right? Like, it happens all the time with Anna Kendrick. Anna Kendrick with me. I'm like, always freeze on Anna Kendrick's name. It does. Always freeze it. But they'll be like, we'll be talking about a topic, and I'll go, oh, damn it, what's the guy's name? It's somebody I know perfectly well who it is, but I freeze on the name for a second. And I've had people, write to me over the years and understandably make a little bit of fun of me for it. But honestly, in my defense, if most people, anybody, tried to do what we do, where we're talking for 2 hours straight,
yeah,
and we're covering about 60 to 70 different topics of questions and topics that get brought up spur of the moment, and we were just thinking about one thing, and now we're suddenly trying to change gears and start thinking about another total thing, and blah, blah, blah. I guarantee most people would probably freeze on a name now or again, like as much as I do. Because to me, I also try to expand. When I give an answer on something, I try to not just talk about one little thing. I try to expand the answer and talk about, well, for instance, something that could be applicable like this is that movie with, that guy. Who's that guy again? Because I also try to go out and blossom out from it. But yeah, I freeze. I do. I have brain freezes sometimes doing it, but I don't feel bad about it because I think if most people, because Rob, most YouTubers are smarter and they don't try to do what I do because trying to do what I do is kind of dumb. That doing what I do is dumb. But, where they make short 10-minute videos, normally they're also pre-recorded and they can edit them later and blah, blah, blah. And they'll just talk about one particular topic. You try to cover 60 or 70 topics in one video, you'll probably freeze sometimes. And I certainly do. And maybe somebody who is smoother would avoid that. But I'm not embarrassed to say, I can't remember a guy's name. And I'm not embarrassed to say, that's a movie I haven't seen. And I'm not embarrassed to say, I don't know that movie. Somebody mentions the movie, so I'm not embarrassed. And so I'm also not embarrassed to freeze on a name. I'm not embarrassed. But it is.
Dude,
what it is.
I'm right there with you. Like I do my own show too, and I'm covering all kinds of different topics, and I'm pulling things from my entire life and talking about comics I read 30 years ago, or books I read 40 years ago, or TV shows from the 60s. I mean, there's and then sometimes I'll see someone's face in my mind. I know exactly who they are and what their name is, but for whatever reason, it's not there.
Yeah,
I see
and you've talked about 20 other topics already that day, so it happens.
Yeah, it's just not there.
Now, what happens too is with a lot of radio shows and things like that, you'll see on some of the big sports shows, they'll have 3 or 4 guys at desks with laptops in front of them off camera, and sometimes they'll cut to them because then they have earpieces and they have people who will give them the information, and they'll say, or they'll turn to somebody and blah blah blah. But it's difficult compounding with that, Rob, for what you do with your show and here, we're also trying to be I'm the cameraman, I'm the audio guy, I'm the switcher, I'm I'm the technical director. I'm trying to run everything and talk about. So it does happen, and I can guarantee you it will continue to happen. It will happen more. I absolutely guarantee you that it will happen more. All right, let's keep moving on here. Next up, Brandon Stringer writes, movies that I constantly rewatched as a kid: Men in Black, Revenge of the Sith, Spider-Man 1 and 2, Superman 1 and 2, Shrek 2, by the way, easily to me still the best Shrek movie is Shrek 2. I really, really love that film. Batman Forever, RoboCop, The Matrix, Blade, and Daredevil. I like Daredevil, by the way, the Ben Affleck one. Great show, John. Keep up the good work. Sending love from the UK. Well, thank you so much for that, Brandon. And yeah, listen, I'll say it again. Some people are kind of checking the audio on their computers right now. Rob saying, wait a minute, did he just say he likes the Daredevil movie? I do. Dude, I like the Daredevil movie.
I do too, and especially the director's cut, the extended director's cut. And now people say, I think it has a lack of verisimilitude. I mean, the movie opens with a CG rat, but there's a lot about that movie that I really like.
Me too. And I've often said this, and people get mad at me when I say it. But if you take out one of the truly worst scenes ever in the history of comic book movies, I contend that if you take out that damn sequence with the teeter-totter fight, you remember the one where him and Jennifer Garner and if you take that, one of the worst scenes in comic book cinematic history, I contend if you take that out, it's not only a good movie, not one of the greatest of all time, but it's a great movie. I would say it's a great movie if you took out that scene. I loved Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. I absolutely loved his Kingpin. I loved Colin Farrell as Bullseye. I thought he was great. He made me miss. I never miss. And the scene when he's in the airplane and the lady beside him is just driving him crazy. So he murders her by flicking a peanut off a tray to go down her throat and choke her out. He murders a woman because she was just being annoying and a seat beside her. I don't care what anybody says. I like that movie. I do too. Okay. Sorry. Let's move on here. Where are we at? We're at, where are we at? Obaid Yusufzai. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Forgive me, man. Hey, John, longtime fan. Thank you so much. I've been recently watching The Outsider. I keep hearing good things about that. The Outsider on HBO, and it just confirms how crazy good Ben Mendelsohn is, which we've known for a while. Have you ever seen a recent movie with him when Ryan Reynolds, the Mississippi Grind. Mississippi Grind, he and the movie are fantastic. Thanks. I thought, by the way, it wasn't that recent. I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. It came out in like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. First of all, Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn are both great in that movie. Now there's some poker in that movie, so I'm a little bit biased for that because I'm a poker player. But good movie. I didn't think the movie overall was great, but it's good. I mean, I liked it. But the performances of Ben Mendelsohn and Ryan Reynolds in that movie are absolutely staggeringly good. Actually, I liked it very. Rob, did you ever have a chance to see Mississippi Grind? I know it was a smaller thing. Not a lot of people did, but did you have a chance to see it?
No, I did, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I mean, is it great? I wouldn't call it great, but I thought it was really entertaining. I have a soft spot for gambling movies, and I thought they were really good together. I'm a huge Ben Mendelsohn fan, and I like Ryan Reynolds in the role. I think that was another one of those grindstone movies. They released them through Lionsgate. That's where The Hitman's Bodyguard came from, too.
Right. And
which I also really liked. And so, yeah, I like Mississippi Grind quite a bit.
All right, let's move on here. Next up comes to us from an anonymous viewer who writes, the My Hero Academia movie did well in the box office. Yeah, made $5 million, which, I mean, obviously that's a tiny amount, but I mean, for what it is, that's actually pretty damn good. Made $5 million at the box office. Anyway, the My Hero Academia movie did well in the box office for being an anime. I think that this will at least make some movie execs think about the viability of live action adaptation. No, it will not. No, it will not. No, look. Like I just said, $5 million for that thing was great. $5 million for that movie is great, Rob. But there's no studio executive who's looking at $5 million at the box office and going, wow, we should make an $85 million live action adaptation of that. No, they're not. No, they're not. Now, if that movie had opened and it had made $65 million opening, yeah, then there would be some movie executives looking at it. And listen, they might just be looking at it as a live action adaptation possibility just because of the IP itself. They might be doing that already. But no executive is looking at a $5 million box office. Even if that's great for what it is, no movie executive's looking at that result and going, wow, we could make it live. I don't think so at all. Rob, I don't know. How do you see it?
Well, I see it kind of the same way that you see it. I mean, it really depends. When you're going to decide what movies are going to get made. On one hand, you can say, okay, we've got a star. Obviously there's the idea that, yes, a movie star can sell a movie. But I've never believed that's the only thing that sells a film. You have to have all the elements in place. It's got to be the subject matter. It's got to be the movie star. It's got to be the filmmaking team to come together. And also, you have to gauge, what does the audience want to see right now? What is something that's culturally relevant that can get butts in the seats? When you look at something like Invisible Man with $7 million, I call it a zeitgeist movie. It really always, men going after women, stalker movies, slasher movies, they always work. But this has the extra added benefit of having the Me Too movement, and it's really a zeitgeist movie. It's a cultural moment movie. And then you look at something like Call of the Wild. Wow, why today? Are kids clamoring for a man surviving with his dog movie in the wilderness? I think it was a throwback movie, and was that the right movie to make now? And I think finding out which movies are made at what time, for what audience, in what era, is really important. And understanding, what do you think that the market will bear? All of these things are a skill. This is what great studio executives, they used to go with their gut. Now they rely on marketing departments, and I don't think sometimes people know. They're not smart enough. They're not looking at, and I think that's a big problem and part of what's going on in Hollywood.
All right.
I guess.
Let's move on here. Nazir also writes, also season 4, I think we're still talking about My Hero Academia. Season 4 of the anime is really kicking ass to the viewers. If you're not watching, you should. Seasons 1 through 3 are on Hulu now, and the rest usually go on once the season is finished. And that's why I was saying a little bit earlier, look, I've heard a lot of people, including my wife, really likes that show. I've never seen it myself, but my wife likes it.
Dude, it's a great show. What I wanted to finish by saying is that, they have been able to release like Super Brawly. Dragon Ball Z Super Broly. That
Broly
came out,
or whatever.
Super Broly, that did well. And that was something that I don't think most studio executives know that how popular those things are, because I think anime is not as it's not on people's radar. And so the fact that it made $5 million this weekend, right?
Yes.
That's My Hero Academia. Somebody knew that you put that in the theater, people are going to go. My Hero Academia is a very well-regarded show, and yet no major studio would have released that movie. Not for
$5 million. Not for. But that's the thing. I think that's why I was saying earlier that I think, that's not to say that we couldn't get it, because I think there could be some studio executives that are looking at it and say, this looks like something very promising, and maybe we could turn this into a live action adaptation. But I'm just saying, it's not because of the $5 million opening weekend. That's not going to make somebody go, ooh, we should make this in a movie because the anime version made $5 million. That's not going to do it, but it could happen just because maybe they like the property. So that's something to keep in mind.
That's what I mean. It is a really good property, and I think if you know what's going on, you'd have to understand that there's a huge audience. I mean, if Netflix would release, its viewership, there's a huge audience for that anime. It's very well regarded, and people have liked it for years.
Yeah, people have. So, okay, let's move on here. Where did I go? I am lost already. Hold a second. Let me find where I'm supposed to be right now. My screen is stuck. Hold on a second. My screen seems to be stuck. That's why this isn't popping up. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, I see why. Give me 1 minute. See, again, this is what happens when you try to host the show and be on the show. Okay. There we go. We're back up, I think. Are we? Yes, we are. Okay. So, next one up says, The Spirit of Bob Ross writes, John, I don't see how the Fantasy Island director would have been a good choice for the X-Force trilogy. Okay, that's a dumb thing to say. Okay, and here's why. And I've said a few dumb things myself today. So, okay, let's follow that logic. I don't think the directors of You, Me, and Dupree are a good choice to direct a Marvel movie. Oh, you know who directed You, Me, and Dupree? The Russo brothers. How'd that turn out? Now, I'm not saying that that's proof, but yes, any director, you can find one thing that didn't work and then go, oh, well, then they would be terrible with this. Marvel got the guys who directed You, Me, and Dupree, for heaven's sakes, to come in and direct Captain America, Winter Soldier. And look how that turned out. They just knew they had somebody who had a good vision for that movie and they thought could work really well with Kevin Feige, and then magic happened. But if you get any director, you can point out one film in their list, oh, well, the guy who directed that one bad thing, I don't want him directing this. Well, yeah, but this guy also did a really good job directing Kick-Ass 2, despite the fact that he had to do it without the best character from the first movie in Big Daddy. And I thought he did a pretty good things. He also did like Never Back Down, which I thought was actually really quite good for what it was. And I thought a guy like that with his sensibilities could have brought something. And by the way, I just want to point this out too. What they tried to do with we as film fans, remember I was saying earlier, Rob, that we as film fans tend to lie a lot? And we lie to ourselves mostly. I lie to myself as a film fan. We lie to ourselves a lot because, we say we want original films, but then we don't. But here's the other thing. We say we want filmmakers to take risks. But really what we're saying is we want filmmakers to do things that almost always will work. Yeah, those are contradictory statements. We say we want them to take risks, but if you're asking a filmmaker to take a risk, you also have to accept that in taking a risk, doing something risky means there's a good possibility that it's not going to work. That's why it's called a risk. I was watching LeBron James and the Lakers play basketball the other night. He decided to take a three. Guess what? Taking a 3-point shot is a lower percentage shot, but it has some payoff as it works. And guess what? He missed more than half of them. Most players miss more than half of the 3-point shots they take because it's a risky shot. So we say we want filmmakers to take risks. Doing what they did with Fantasy Island was a risky thing. That was kind of a gutsy thing to take this Ricardo Montalban, famous kind of older property in Fantasy Island, take something like that, twist it, turn it on its ear, and try to make it into something completely different. That was risky. That was doing something really different that could work or it could go bad. So he took a risk and it didn't work. But if we as film fans are going to ask directors and studios and filmmakers to be bold and take big swings and take big risks, then we can't sit there on the sideline with our thumbs up our asses and go, oh, you did a movie that didn't work. Well, we've asked them to take big risks. That means sometimes they're not going to work. And we have to be lenient with that if we want them to try risky. And listen, think what you want about Fantasy Island. It was a roll of the dice. It was bold. It was a different sort of idea. And it didn't work. But that's what happens when you take risks. Sometimes it's not going to work. I don't know, Rob. How would you respond to something like that? What do you think?
Well, sometimes filmmakers, for whatever reason, movies don't have that alchemy. They don't have that magic. It just doesn't work. But I don't think you can judge a filmmaker. I mean, like you said, Fantasy Island, I loved what they were going to try and do, and I did not go after I heard all the disappointing word of mouth. But you can bet your bottom dollar when it shows up on streaming, I'm going to watch it. I'll give it a chance because I want to see what they tried to do with it. The fact that it didn't work, I mean, there's a lot of factors, but, we always expect every filmmaker to be 100% all the time. And I think a lot of filmmakers have made, if you go back and you look at your favorite filmmaker's filmography, there's movies that you might not like that they've made that aren't so good. Like I love William Friedkin. I don't think The Guardian or The Brink's Job were the best choices for him. But that doesn't mean I don't love The French Connection, The Exorcist, To Live and Die in L.A., Sorcerer, Blue Chips even. It happens. So I know we want to judge people quickly, but sometimes it's hard to do that. Some people they don't connect with the material. But, I hope for the best every time somebody gets a chance to make something.
All right. And again, I just want to remind everybody, Kevin Feige went out and got the directors of You, Me, and Dupree. Just got to keep that in mind, everybody. You just got to keep that in mind. All right. Canada Rocks writes, years ago at University of Toronto, I did a paper on VHS versus beta format wars. Not saying it's a complete myth, but I could not find any research on the porn industry effect. Oh, I could. But hold on a second. Let's finish this. On the porn industry effect. Where do we go? Most experts agree that the reason VHS won was recording time. Early beta could only do up to 1.5 hours. RCA released, but that was early beta. But anyway, RCA released a VHS player that could do 4 hours, depending on the quality time that you put onto it, which was enough to record a football game. Ability to record more shows helped VHS get a great head start. Home video sales, including porn, came later, and by that time, beta was already dying. That is a big factor. I have read a bunch of stuff that, I've read interviews from certain industries, people saying, yeah, because the porn industry kind of broke with VHS, that just meant more people were buying VHS players opposed to Betamax. But one of the bigger things, probably bigger than the porn thing and maybe even more than the recording time thing, was a lot of people forget was that Betamax, Rob, whereas VHS was basically open format. Anybody could take and make a VHS player. Betamax was a proprietary Sony property. And Sony made a big mistake. Instead of opening up the license and saying, hey, y'all can make Betamax players. You can make Betamax players and tapes and accessories, blah, blah, blah. They licensed Betamax out, which limited its potential growth when you had another format in VHS that... It's not a direct one-to-one comparison, but think of it in terms of today's. VHS was open source. If you want to use modern terminology, in a way, it wasn't really open source, but in a way it was.
Yeah.
And others. So there's a lot of reasons. Rob, when you think back to the Great War, before HD DVD versus Blu-ray, before streaming versus physical media, there was beta versus VHS. Like, what do you think of when you think of it as one of the main reasons why it won? Because by all accounts, the Betamax was actually the higher quality format, but it went VHS way. What do you think of when you think back to that great format war?
Well, I used to sell both beta and I'll tell you something.
That's
I'm
right.
I'm going to admit this. My grandparents wanted to buy a VCR, and I sold them a beta machine. I sold them actually there was a super beta came out that was even better.
That's
beta
right.
Beta was a much better format, and you very succinctly and correctly pointed out that Sony, who had created the format, licensed out Betamax to very few people. I think like Sanyo was one of the people. There was just not very many people making beta machines. And VHS machines, Matsushita let everybody make VHS machines. I mean, they still, it was still their technology, but they just gave it to everybody. And what that did was it drove the price down for VHS machines. So they were cheaper than beta. Beta was much more expensive. And in the rental market, even when I was working at Video Space, we would get like 10 copies of a movie on VHS and like 2 copies on beta. And frequently the beta tapes were always rented, so people that had beta machines couldn't get the tapes they wanted to rent. And that was a big mistake. And I think that's what really killed, it was the price and the availability that killed beta. And it was an absolutely better format. Super beta was a terrific format that was way better than SVHS was. And you're absolutely right. But it was too bad. I mean, Sony killed their own brand. It was their own fault.
And you know what? I still, to this day, think every once in a while I wake up in a cold sweat nightmare thinking about playing a movie on a VHS and then all of a sudden hearing... Because you knew that was the sound of the tape being pulled out of the machine and getting chewed up.
And then when you pull out that tape and you had to pull it off the heads and it's just, you look at this just ravaged tape and you're like, oh, that whole scene in the movie is gone. I hope it's not my favorite scene in the movie.
Well, the whole tape was gone a lot of the times. The whole damn tape was gone.
Terrible.
Then you try to do the old cassette tape trick where you get a big pencil, try to turn the crank manually to get the tape go back. Ooh, I don't miss those days, Rob. Dude, I don't miss those days.
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
All right, let's keep moving here. Tom Gillard writes, I liked the Palpatine stuff in The Rise of Skywalker. I guess you're not alone, Tom. As much as I can talk about that, I didn't like it all I wanted, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people did like it, and if you liked it, that's the important thing. All right, I like the Palpatine stuff in The Rise of Skywalker, but I give up. Just waiting for them to say Palpy was the first attempt at resurrecting James Dean for a movie. Great. That's called a callback in comedy, ladies and gentlemen. Good job, Tom. I like the way you connected that in a big circle. Well done. All right. Tom Gillard also writes, Impulse bought Batman Hot Toy. That's not a bad impulse buy. From Justice League on Sunday. Now I have a Wonder Woman and a Batman. I guess I need to get the Superman to complete the Trinity. Rob, I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to guess that you have the Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman from Justice League.
Okay. I have the Batman and Wonder Woman. I don't have the Superman yet.
Really?
Because I'll tell you, I don't believe it's available here. Some people have been able to get it, but I haven't. And I do want to get it. And I don't have Superman. I also don't have Aquaman from Justice League. But I have I have Superman from Man of Steel. And it's so
counts.
close. But the Superman from Justice League, it's different colors, brighter colors. And I do want to get it. But man, let me tell you, that deluxe Batman from Justice League figure is one of Hot Toys' best. That figure is dope. And if you want to get a Hot Toys figure, if that's going to be your first figure or your only Hot Toys figure, that is the figure to get because it is spectacular.
All right. Next up, Tom also writes, what annoys me most about the Palpatine thing is there was an explanation for his return. He knows how to cheat death. He learned it from Plagueis. It ties back to his speech in episode 3, and they ignored it. The one thing I will say, the one challenge I will say about that, though, Tom, is that he hadn't learned it. Like the movies made it pretty clear that he hadn't learned it. And a lot of the stuff in canon, including in the novels, there's a lot of stuff that one of the reasons he wanted Vader was he and Vader could work together to uncover the secret. So I see what you're saying. It is something that frustrated me as well. And maybe they could have came up with a way to tie that in. But from where they were in a state of canon, that's something that he had not learned. So that's something for us to keep in mind. It was going to be a little bit tricky. I still would have preferred what you're proposing. I would have preferred what you're proposing, but still would have been a little bit tricky. All right. Initial D's writes, John Campea, how did I forget that name? He's my favorite YouTuber. Of course, that's often my response is like, man, I love her. And then later on, oh yeah, Anna Kendrick, I love her. Why do I keep freezing on Anna Kendrick's name? There you go. That's another callback. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, the way back in UFC 248 are this upcoming weekend. Asking if you would be tuning in would be a rhetorical question. Of course it would be. So I'll ask you who you got between Adesanya and Romero. Listen, Yoel Romero has nuclear bombs at the end of each of his arms. He really does. He is explosive. He is a physical freak. Like there's nobody else in the UFC that's looks like he was drawn as a comic book superhero. Like he's just got this crazy build and physique. He's deceptively fast and he's got incredible power. The problem with him though is that he gasses out and he gets reckless, which is great if you're fighting somebody who isn't the caliber of the last Stylebender. When you're fighting somebody of the caliber of the last Stylebender, he will make you miss and you will get wild. And when you get wild and miss, he will counter you and put you on your ass. His fight, Stylebender's fight against Gastelum was one of the best mixed martial arts fights I have ever seen. Top 6 or 7, I think, I've ever seen. And here's the other thing about Stylebender. He has shown in that Gastelum fight in particular, he can take a shot. Like, he took some bombs from Gastelum. He took some absolute bombs, and it never slowed him down. And it never threw him off his game. You know, the Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. He got punched in the mouth and it didn't faze him. He didn't like it, but it didn't faze him. It didn't throw him off his game or whatever. So listen, when you got nuclear bombs on the end of your hands, you can win any fight you're in. And Romero certainly can win this fight. But if I had to put $5 on it, I'm going Stylebender. Anyway, thanks. So I get talking about UFC and I can talk all day, and I'm very excited about this fight. All right, JMeister25 writes, Lucasfilm's desperate attempt to salvage a sloppy script post-release is laughable and pathetic. Flesh out and solidify your ideas before the release. Yeah, I just don't know, JMeister, what they're thinking. Like, they portray it one way in the movie, visual dictionary suggests something completely different, and then you throw something in the novel that's, again, completely different. Again, I'm not going to go off on it again, but again, it just, to me, reemphasizes that they do not have a well-constructed plan behind the scenes, and they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, and it's frustrating for me as a fan. Frank Pajensky writes, hey, Mr. Camp Beer, I am frustrated too with this no plan for Star Wars. I like all the new movies, but they could do much better if there was a plan for the whole story. And I am very much, Rob, I'm in Frank's, I'm in your category here. Other than The Rise of Skywalker, I have liked all the films. I have liked all the films that have come out for Star Wars under the Disney banner. Some more than others, but I've generally liked them all. A couple of them I desperately love. The rest I like until The Rise of Skywalker, which I didn't like. So I'm with you. But Rob, I said this on my show the other day. I'll say it again. Say what you want about the prequels, and I hate the prequels. There are things about the prequels I like, and I know there are other people who like them, and that's great. I hate the prequels. But say what you want about the prequels, you can at least say that when you watch them, it was clear that, love it or hate it, George Lucas had a very clear path and a very clear plan for his movies trilogy. Right. His 3 movies are completely consistent with each other. They flow one to the next. He knew where his trilogy was starting, and he knew where it wanted to end. Now, I don't like what they were, but he was consistent. He had a plan, and he executed his plan. And that, to me, has been one of the big frustrating things. And again, Rob, it should be no surprise to us when you've got Kathleen Kennedy, who, again, I am a big fan of. She's one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood, but she has not turned out to be a good studio head. When you have a studio head who has had a terrible track record already of blowing through directors, writers, projects, all this kind of stuff in a very limited number of movies, that when you have that, it's no surprise to hear that everything else behind the scenes is a bit of a convoluted mess as well. And it's just not good or healthy for your properties long term. You can luck out and put out a couple of really good movies, and they have, but that luck runs out. If your basis is on luck and not on well thought out, well planned, well executed, even when it doesn't work, strategy and planning, then eventually that'll catch up to you and bite you in the ass, and it did. And I'm with Frank here. I'm with Frank here. It is a frustrating thing because when you see George Lucas's stuff, even in the terrible prequels, he had a plan. Why can't you have a plan? And anyway, sorry. I went off longer on that than I should have already, and I apologize. All right. Swim writes, loved your guys' rant on Star Wars. They need to get people who are passionate and knowledgeable about the franchise. No, they don't. This is an unpopular thing for me to say. I know it, but it's true. No, they don't. They don't need people who are passionate about it, and I'll get into that in a minute. They just need people who are talented. Anyway. They need people who are passionate and knowledgeable about the franchise, leadership as well. In The Force Awakens, when I see Leia walk past Chewie to console Rey, I just shake my head. You don't make mistakes like that. Here's the thing, Swim. One of the things, that wasn't because, look, I go back to this one all the time, Rob. The guy who directed that horrible Dungeons and Dragons movie with Jeremy Irons, remember that? The guy who directed that horrible Dungeons & Dragons movie is probably one of the most passionate Dungeons & Dragons fans in the world. Being passionate about your thing does not set you up to be good at that thing. And guess what? There's a reason George Lucas handpicked Kathleen Kennedy to be the person to head Lucasfilm. She knows Star Wars inside out. Everybody today likes to pretend like she doesn't. She does. She knows it Star Wars inside out and backwards. She worked with George himself. He picked her. So knowing something, and J.J. Abrams grew up as a Star Wars fanatic, like most film fans and a lot of filmmakers are. He's passionate about Star Wars. That doesn't cover the problems. That doesn't cover the problems. What problems there are were not from, a lack of things. See, I don't know. Fans like to think, Rob, we as fans sometimes like to think that making films is easy and anybody can do it. All you have to be is passionate about the project and you can do it too. No, you can't. Neither can I. Not good anyway. It takes, and Kathleen Kennedy's clearly a great producer, but she's not a studio head. George thought she was. Iger thought she was. I thought she was. I thought she was a great choice. I at first thought she was a great choice to run that. And she was. On paper, she was a great logical choice to run that. But it's just clear that her style and her approach and her particular skill set, while great at many things, was not great for this. And it's not about passion. It's not about any of that. Film fans like to pretend that it is because it's an easy thing for us to grasp onto, but it's not. It goes beyond that. And I think that's the problem. And I just think, Rob, I believe that under the new Bob CEO, the new CEO, I think there's going to be a change in leadership at Lucasfilm soon. But I think there needs to be. Where are you right now in all of that?
Well, look, I'm of two minds. Obviously, you've got 5 movies that were made, and 4 of them made over $1 billion, and that's pretty damn good. But on the other hand, the divisiveness in the press and amongst the fan base, and there's something to be said for publicity as well. And the fact that there was a lot of turmoil behind the scenes, the fact that these movies were very, very difficult to get out. I know there was a lot of pressure all the way around, and I hesitate to. On one hand, I admire Kathleen Kennedy a great deal. I've defended her on my own show on a number of occasions. I mean, the woman began her first producing credit as E.T., and she didn't, contrary to popular belief, just get Steven Spielberg coffee. She's been an active part of producing. What a lot of people don't understand is the job of a producer. Producer is to facilitate. If you're a working producer, you're facilitating everything that the director needs to realize the vision for the film and to make sure that the manpower and the equipment and everything is where it's supposed to be. And I just think that with Star Wars, I don't know if anyone could have made it work flawlessly, like as a finely tuned piece of equipment. I think they would have had these kinds of problems no matter who was in charge. I don't know if they could have been alleviated because of how much pressure was involved. I mean, it's not like Kathleen Kennedy picked left field choices. I mean, at first, even with Lord and Miller, she was trying to pick new up and coming voices that had already sort of proven themselves. I mean, look, Josh Trank's Chronicle was, remember, people forget, when I went and saw Chronicle, I was blown away by that movie. I'm like, my God, what a really interesting look at a superhero film, and the visual effects, the flying effects, and what happened in that movie. I mean, that was an exciting voice. Now, should somebody like that have been given the reins to a Star Wars movie right away? Maybe not, but it was definitely an attempt at trying to do something bold. And I think a lot of the people, even Colin Trevorrow and Carrie Fisher, dying. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened. Now, that said, it seemed like, boy, there certainly was a lot of turbulence over there. Has there ever been a time when there wasn't turbulence? I don't know. So it's hard for me to say, but I would be willing to bet when her contract is up, John, we won't see it. We will see a change.
Yeah,
we will see a change.
One more thing I want to point out. Here's an analogy about this whole thing about we need somebody knowledgeable and passionate about. No, you don't. You need people who are knowledgeable and passionate about directing the films and stuff like that.
And writing.
For the studio head, no, you don't. Here's a great example, Rob. I know not a lot of my American brothers and sisters are much into hockey, but the commissioner of the NHL is a guy by the name of Gary Bettman. Now, a lot of people hate Bettman because most people hate the commissioners of most sports, but a lot of people hate Bettman. But the math is Gary Bettman has overseen the largest financial growth for the NHL, higher salaries for players, all that kind of stuff during his tenure. Guess how much he really knew about hockey when he took over the job? Not tons. Not tons. You look at David Stern, who was the commissioner of the NBA for so many years. And a lot of people hated Stern. But after he passed away recently, like Magic and all of them came out, it's like, look, say what you want. Basketball enjoyed its greatest growth and its greatest prosperity and exploded in popularity under the leadership of David Stern. And David Stern was not the world's biggest basketball fan or the world's most knowledgeable basketball person. What he was a person who knew how to effectively and efficiently run an operation. Gary Bettman is a guy who knew how to effectively and successfully run an operation. Bettman came from a different sports league, for heaven's sakes, but he knew how to do that. And that's the type of person they're going to need to get into the head of Lucasfilm. They need somebody who is a good business person, who knows how to coordinate a whole organization and to get it steering in one direction and to facilitate the other leaders they have under them to make the vision and the goal happen. That's what you need. Get rid of this whole fan fantasy that, no, it's got to be somebody who loves Star Wars and plays with the action figures all day. If they can do that, that's great. If they are somebody's, but the number one thing they need to do is they need to look for a business leader, somebody who knows how to come into an organization, whip it into shape, get it organized in the right direction, and set it loose. And guys like David Stern or the other commissioners in the league who didn't grow up, who weren't professional sports players themselves, but they know how to do it, prove that out. And I think that's what they need next. The next man or woman running this organization, I think, needs to be somebody that maybe we've never even heard of. Needs to be somebody we maybe have never even heard of. You know, and just, I hope they do a good job filling that out. Anyway, sorry, I ranted on that for far longer than I was planning on.
I loved it.
So we're going to just fly. We're going to fly through these next bunch of questions here, guys. Mountain Gherkin 23 writes, Super Duper Movie Scooper Movie Blog asserts that shared fast food cinematic universe movie is in the works. With realistic CGI fast food fighting the dark forces of salad. Any truth to that? Of course, we were talking the other day about the particularly the fake movie news rumors quite often will originate on some unknown website that nobody's ever heard of, and then a slightly larger site decides to use that as a headline. And of course, Super Duper Movie Scooper Movie Blog is a great example of that. But hey, I would go see that because salad, of course, is evil. All right, Zombotron 5678 writes, simple fix, Palpatine was rescued in the Death Star debris and taken to Exegol. They used cloning technology to create a clone and Sith abilities to transport his spirit into the body. Oh, look, now both the novel and the visual dictionary are consistent, except for the fact of this, Zombotron. No, they're not. When you have to go back and play a game of semantics to force it to work a certain way, because even if you did that, it does not explain why in the visual dictionary cloning was never mentioned. I'm sorry. If the Palpatine was cloned, you say that in the visual dictionary. You don't dance around it. And if you, after the fact, have to make up a scenario and then twist around the semantics of it to make it look like maybe it makes sense, that doesn't fix the problem. It just makes it worse. So no, that doesn't fix the problem at all. All right, Damo Davies writes, shout out to Mike Nichols in his directing debut with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I don't think I've seen Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton on finer form. The relationship of Martha and Harry in that movie is both toxic and oddly touching. And of course, it was one of many quote-unquote partnerships that Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton had. I'll be honest with you, I never think of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf as being like the quintessential Elizabeth Taylor performance per se. I mean, I even go to some of her less best movies as some of her best performances. But Rob, when you think back to that movie, actually, here's something I don't know the answer to. Do you own Virginia Woolf?
No. You know what? I have owned Virginia Woolf in the past. I do not have it. I used to have it on Blu-ray. I mean, on DVD, but I never got it on Blu-ray. But I have other movies, like I want to say Butterfield 8 I have on Blu-ray. I'm an Elizabeth Taylor fan, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? She's amazing in that movie, but she's not exactly pleasant. You know?
Well, yeah, but you don't need to be.
You know, and it's an incredible performance. I mean, it's certainly not, when you think about the beautiful Elizabeth Taylor, the Elizabeth Taylor of Cleopatra, but Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf was an unbelievable performance. And now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, I don't even remember what the question is about Elizabeth Taylor. But yes, and of course, you know, the tempestuous nature of the Burton Taylor relationship is it was such a fascinating part of Hollywood, and seeing them go at it. Come on.
It still is. It's one of the great parts of Hollywood lore is that whole relationship.
It really is.
Okay, let's keep moving here quickly. Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, a big popcorn fan. Nice. I come to you with advice. I face some adversity every time I eat a bucket of popcorn. It kind of does a number to my stomach. Am I the only one that has this problem, or are there others? I'm not crazy. No. You're not crazy, as a matter of fact. If I go to the movies, like say I go to a 7:00 movie and I have not had time to eat dinner that night, like I haven't eaten, and I just go into the movie and just down a thing of popcorn, I will have stomach troubles too. You cannot eat a thing of movie popcorn on an empty stomach. You need to eat something real before you go into a movie if you're going to have some popcorn. At least that's what I found for me. If I go in and I don't have an empty stomach and I eat popcorn, I'm good. If I go in completely on an empty stomach and I hadn't eaten for half the day and then the first thing I dump in there is some buttery popcorn, I'm going to pay for it later. I'm going to have some stomach troubles later too. So that's my advice, Russell. Just don't eat it on an empty stomach. Orange Hand writes, so is Fayed Routha not in this Dune movie? Rob, you're the best one to answer that.
Should I answer that? No, he's not.
Do you think, like, which character was that again? Because I can't remember.
It's a character that Sting played. The thing about Fade is that...
okay, yes.
Remember, the upcoming Denis Villeneuve's Dune is the first half of the book.
Right.
It is not the second half of the book, and Fade doesn't appear in it.
Okay, we're going to have time just for a couple of questions more here, guys. Devin Allen writes, "Hey, John, hope your day is going well." It is going well. Thank you for asking. I was watching Age of Ultron, and I appreciate it more and more. I feel that way, too. The more I watch that movie, the more I like it, actually. That's not to say I didn't like it when I first saw it, but it wasn't as good as its predecessor and successors. Looking back, it is a solid MCU film. Rob, you and I have talked about that. I agree. I don't think it's as good as the first Avengers. But the more I've watched it, the more I really do appreciate it. There's some great stuff in that movie, and I quite appreciate it. Rob, I know you felt that way too, right? Like you've grown in your appreciation for it, have you not?
I love it. I love it. It's funny. I thought when I was watching the first Avengers, the whole time I was like, I can't believe I'm in a movie theater watching this movie. Like I couldn't believe it existed. Watching all those characters together in one movie, I really couldn't. I'm not a huge fan of the opening of Avengers, the whole Loki opening in the lab and with Dr. Selvig and all that. Whereas the opening of, say, Age of Ultron, where there's that one long shot of them all assaulting the Hydra base, and it's one long camera shot. And then there's the whole party scene where they're partying in Avengers Tower. And they try and lift up the hammer. I love James Spader, and I've always loved the character of Ultron in the Avengers comics. So I find them to be almost on equal footing for me. And I tend to watch Age of Ultron more than the first Avengers.
Wow. Because to me, First Avengers is the greatest comic book movie of all time, but you even like Ultron a little bit more.
Yeah, but Ultron just has more character bits and stuff that I like, and it's not that I see them. It's interesting because people always said the Age of Ultron was somehow disappointing, and I didn't think it was. It just was a different kind of a movie, and it doesn't have those iconic moments like Puny God, and it doesn't have the scene where Hulk just still to this day, I don't know why he does it, but it's one of my favorite things in any movie ever is when Hulk just smashes Thor. They're just standing next to each other. He just goes boom. And I don't know. I love that. But Age of Ultron just has, as a comic book fan, there's just so much in it that I like.
Yeah, I agree. All right, a couple more here, and then we're going to wrap it up here today. Robert Perez writes, "You and Robert Meyer Burnett are my version of Siskel and Ebert. Thank you for what you do. Love your show and Robert's show and all the guests." Well, thank you so much for that, Robert. We appreciate that, man. It's always nice when somebody just wants to write and say something nice to make us feel good, and you did.
Very nice.
You made us feel good. Thank you for that. Corey writes, "Did you see that the USA Today has Star Trek Picard as the number 5 best new show of 2020? What is the world coming to?" Hey, listen, I don't know what y'all are smoking. I think Picard's really good. I'm enjoying Picard. I'm enjoying it very, very much. It's not the best new show of the year to me. Don't get me wrong, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Rob, you hate it. Why?
I don't hate it. I feel that the people that are making the show have not served the Star Trek mythology as perhaps well they could have. And there's a lot of things that I just don't understand about the direction. Now, I have to say, to be fair, there's 4 more episodes, and I do want to see where they're going with it before I make a final assessment. But I will say that most episodes make me want to stick a spoon in my eyeballs, scoop them out, and eat them for dinner. But I don't understand why there's such graphic violence. I'm not a prude, but I don't think kids can watch Star Trek, and Star Trek changed my life when I was a kid. And now I wouldn't want a 5-year-old watching Picard when you've got beheadings and murder in literally every episode.
I think it's great. But there you go. To each their own. Okay. Scott from Wisconsin writes, "Hey, John, I'm sure you've already covered this, but Netflix Masters of the Universe series has cast Mark Hamill as Skeletor, as well as an all-star ensemble including Lena Headey, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Justin Long, Alicia Silverstone, and Kevin Connolly, all of whom I like very much. And by the way, I also believe a friend of ours, Tiffany Smith, I believe she's been cast in that as well. Ultimately, though, I admit I get a little giggly about the fact that Mark Hamill's going to do it, but honestly, the voice talent in an animation doesn't really do it for me. I mean, you could say Daniel Day-Lewis and Denzel Washington and Meryl Streep do the voices, and that would be interesting, but ultimately to me, in an animated film, it doesn't turn the clock for me. I'll just be honest with you. So it's hey, that's a really nice list of names. Rob, I'm a big Justin Long fan. I have been a big Justin Long fan for a long time.
Me too.
Really, really like this guy. And I like a lot of the names on there. But again, the names who are going to be doing the voices, that's not what gets me excited for an animated movie or an animated show. That's just not the thing that gets me excited. So I don't know. You see all this list, Rob. What do you think?
Well, I think it's great, but like you, I don't necessarily think that name actors are the best voice talent for animation. You know, voice talent, great voiceover talent is really, it's an art form unto itself. And while, like, I think Mark Hamill is a great voiceover talent. I really do.
Yes,
like,
he is. Yeah.
You know, his indelible Joker, and there's been a lot of great voice talent, but you know, you really have to understand that when you go into a booth, you have to bring, like, I think Tom Hanks is a great voiceover talent. He really, I can't imagine anyone else doing Woody the way he does. He really can bring out that theatricality that makes a voice leap. When you can't see the actor doing it, it has to leap beyond the artwork. You have to believe in that character, and that's not always an easy thing to do. So while it's cool, I think it's cool, I always reserve judgment until I hear the finished product.
All right, guys, and listen, for everybody else who still has questions to come from, Call Me Ishmael, Aaron, James Druden, Andrew White, Dumbledore Calrissian, which is a great name. Do not worry, guys. We're going to save your questions, and they're going to be the first questions we answer on tomorrow's episode of the John Campea Show. So if you sent in those questions, do not worry. Your questions are going to get answered on the show. They're just going to have to wait till tomorrow because we have run out of time today. Hey, Rob, listen. Thank you so much, man, for being here again. In the meantime, Rob, between now and then, where can people find you and your exploits online?
You can find me at my local polling station voting. But after that, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. You can find me on Instagram at my name, Robert Meyer Burnett. Or you can find me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
All right, dude. And of course, you guys can follow me on all the various social media outlets, Twitter, Instagram, and everything, simply at John Campea. Guys, while you're here, why don't you click the thumbs up button on this video if you like the type of stuff that we talk about here. You don't have to agree with our opinions, but if you like these sorts of discussions, make sure you click that thumbs up button. Also, why don't you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well? Keep up to date on all the things we got going on here. And of course, guys, the John Campea Show will return again tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much to all of you who sent in questions, not just because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported the channel while you did it, and all of us here, thank you very much for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.